In 1998, the World Bank's structural adjustment policies forced India to open its seed markets to global corporations like Cargill, Monsanto and Syngenta. One result was the introduction of genetically modified crops, among them BT plants. BT plants are modified to carry the genes of a bacteria that occurs in the soil, Bacillus thuringiensis. The toxins produced by the modified plant are supposed to repel pests, thereby reducing the use of pesticides. The first BT plant to be introduced in India was BT cotton. India discovered that BT seeds are more expensive than indigenous or hybrid seeds. That the seed companies ensured that non-BT seeds disappear from the market. BT crops are much more water intensive, and BT crops did not produce significant increase in yields or decline in the use of pesticides. The Maharashtra Agricultural Minister Balasaheb Thorat admitted in 2008 that BT had failed in Maharashtra and warned farmers not to sow it. The Maharashtra government paid over Rs 4,000 million in compensation to BT farmers over 4 years. Thousands of BT cotton farmers, unable to repay agricultural debt losses, committed suicide. This is the story of how tribal women tried to stop a replay of this story in Orissa. The state of Orissa lies on the eastern coast of India. Periodically ravaged by cyclones, floods and droughts, it is also known as India's disaster state. Though rich in mineral wealth, the inequitable distribution of resources and inadequate responses by the state caused Orissa's per capita income to fall to half the per capita income of India in the late 1990s. Orissa has 62 indigenous tribes who eke out a marginal living with rain-fed agriculture. The poverty rate for the rural tribal population in Orissa is 71.5%, the highest among all the states in India. One of Orissa's major crops is the humble brinjal, the eggplant or aubergine. Orissa has about 226 indigenous varieties of brinjal that have adapted over the centuries to the different agroecological conditions in the state. When it became clear that Orissa was going to be the target for the introduction of GM crops, THREAD, Team for Human Resource Development and Action for Development, an international human resource development and healing center, alerted the Orissa Nari Samaj. The Orissa Nari Samaj is a state federation of 54 block-level organizations of Adivasi women, or women belonging to India's indigenous tribes. THREAD organized a workshop called People's Movement on Food Security, Ecology and Food Sovereignty in June 2005. During the workshop, it became clear that the thriving biodiversity of Orissa, with more than 7,000 species of flora and 700 varieties of paddy alone, would be threatened with contamination if GM crops entered the state. A mass movement against GM seeds began in 54 blocks in 13 districts of the state. Protests were also staged near the State Assembly. In November 2005, the Orissa Nari Samaj began statewide protests and a signature campaign against the WTO-driven trade policies which favored the introduction of GM crops. Towards the end of 2005, Mahiko, Monsanto's Indian arm, applied to the GEAC for large-scale field trials of BT.Brinjal in Orissa. The GEAC, the Genetic Engineering Approval Committee of the Ministry of Environment and Forests, is the only authority to sanction such field trials. However, most members of the GEAC are themselves developers of GM crops and members of bodies sponsored by the biotech industry. Hence, the GEAC never penalizes biotech companies for violation of norms and inadequate safety measures. It was clear that only a mass response would work. THREAD and Orissa Nari Samaj motivated over 2,500 villages and 54 block-level Samajs to write letters of protest to the Chief Minister of the state and to the GEAC chairman. The Chief Minister promised to look into the matter but took no concrete action. A more concentrated response, therefore, became necessary. THREAD designed posters to raise awareness in the state about the potential impact of the introduction of GM crops in the state and the advantages of organic foods. 40,000 posters were distributed throughout the state. A coalition of local NGOs was formed to address the matter collectively. With broader support, thousands of memoranda were sent to the government. A statewide signature campaign was also carried out to persuade the government to facilitate farming and marketing of organic produce. In June 2006, the campaign received information from a reliable source that BT.Brinjal trials in Orissa were imminent. Mass protests and rallies happened all over the state. THREAD decided to carry out a novel protest. It organized a 3-day Vipassana meditation camp in the Khandagiri caves near Bhubaneswar on the 27th, 28th and 29th of July 2006, during which people sat in silent contemplation. They hoped that the vibrations of positive energy would prove a counter to the cravings of the multinational companies for indiscriminate and unethical profit, and to the ignorance that led to acts that harm the welfare of the people. The meditation camp sought to encourage the GEAC to take decisions that were positive to nature and to the community. On 31st July 2006, in a noble rally led by the Orissa Nari Samaj and supported by THREAD and the NGO coalition, Organic brinjals from the tribal belt in Orissa were carried in symbolic Brinjal palanquis to the chanting of Shanti Mantra in the state capital. The palanquis highlighted the respect people had for indigenous food crops. In 2007, yet another attempt was made to carry out trials of BT.Brinjal. Again, a wave of protests happened throughout Orissa. Elected representatives of local governments in the tribal belt sent thousands of memoranda against the trials to the state government. They demanded that the state be declared an organic state. A symbolic protest was organized in the state capital. Organic vegetables produced by tribal communities were sold in the state capital. Finally, in July 2007, the Agricultural Minister of Orissa informed the State Assembly that BT.Brinjal would be banned in the state. Further, 700 panchayat representatives took an oath to protect the biodiversity of the state and took an oath that 1,727 villages in the state would remain GM-free villages. The leaders of Orissa Nari Samaj are working towards educating and persuading other local governments to join the GM-free movement so that Orissa will remain an organic state. The global corporations changed the input economy overnight. Farm-saved seeds were replaced by corporate seeds which could not be saved. As seed saving is prevented by patents as well as by the engineering of seeds with non-renewable traits, seeds have to be brought for every planting season by the poor peasants. A free resource available on farms became a commodity which farmers were forced to buy every year. This increases poverty and leads to indebtedness. As debts increase and become unpayable, farmers are compelled to sell kidneys or even commit suicide. More than 25,000 peasants in India have taken their lives since 1997 when multinational corporations started to take control of the seed supply.